2025. So good to have you with us this morning, listeners. We know that you have choices. We are particularly happy when you come here on the 8th of a month. Some people say it signals new beginnings. You already had the first of the month, and I pointed out to you that it's a time to start over. Some of us don't use numbers to start over because every moment we get to start again. But for those of you who want the 8 to start over, use today. We're happy when you come here, happier when you find reasons to stay. This is the hotline.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
A lot of stories attracting my attention. First is a story that we've had an interest in concerning this Neuro drill bought by Sarah, the Southeast Regional Health Authority, for 31 million Jamaican dollars. A drill that is of necessity to the institution for which it is bought, which is the Bustamante Hospital for Children. And it has been described by the institution as a major leap into modern medical technology. And it will improve the hospital's ability to perform brain and spinal procedures on young patients. That aspect of it is not in dispute. The opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Alfred Dawes, when I last left this program on Friday, disclosed, upon my asking, a website for an entity in the United States, which he says it sells the unit subject to the disclosure of the specs. It sells the Neuro drill for approximately 10 million Jamaican dollars, even with some attachments. He couldn't say with any degree of accuracy the final sum because the specs have not yet been disclosed. I've requested of the chairman of the Southeast Regional Health Authority, Mr. Wentworth Charles, disclosure of the specs so that we can make a comparison on the price actually paid by Sarah and which was paid after advertising, bidding, and approval by the Public Procurement Committee. We get that. But I remain unsatisfied, as are a lot of people listening based on the questions we've had. And we need to satisfy ourselves whether this particular drill is available from a single source overseas for 1/3 the price. If it is, then that is not really the end of the matter, because there are issues that need to be disaggregated, such as shipping, whatever freight, cost, customs, whatever, all of those things will have to be added in. But I think it is very important, and not only those alone, then we have to decide whether within the context where this is not an emergency procurement, and so sole sourcing may not be applicable, whether they could have gone to this entity in the United States? And if they went to the entity in the United States, if it is permissible, under all of the rules, could we have had a maintenance contract, which we understand we now have? But the point is, we're not at variance with the capacity of this particular drill to leap us into modern medical technology and to improve capacity to perform brain and spinal procedure. We are dealing with the issue as to whether we could have sourced it for far less, and therefore could we have bought 2 instead of 1. I had a long interview with Dr. Tufton on Friday, and he was of the view that in his mind, based on all the explanations that have been provided, he's satisfied on the issue of value for money. For me, value for money is a very important consideration in everything that we discuss. But I don't know that one can properly conclude that we've had value for money when one doesn't have the answer for one of the first and important questions now coming up, which is whether this Neuro drill is available from an alternative source for 1/3 the price. So I now ask Sarah again publicly for full disclosure of the specs, for full disclosure of the number of attachments that were purchased with the particular drill, so that the comparisons can be made. And when we get over the hurdle, first principles, then all of the other explanations and value for money considerations can come in thereafter. I think we're up on a quick break. Let's just go to the break. You're in my views, no? All right. We're staying here. Yesterday was Judiciary Day. I mean, fascinating. First time ever. And there's a beautiful page on B12 of the Gleaner of Wednesday the 7th May. Almost one of those sort of keepsake pages where we have a brief history of the Judiciary of Jamaica. And it's a nice chronicling of, you know, the time from which we've come from Charles II, by 33 Charles II, chapter 23, Laws of Jamaica. Fascinating, and giving us a list of the Chief Justices and the presidents of the Court of Appeal, I believe, over the years. And what stood out for me, you know, they say that the pictures over time, they fade. And even looking at the picture without even seeing the dates at the bottom, you can get an insight into the antiquity of the picture you're looking at, because they really just fade away in the face. But more than the fading away is the movement from the wigs, which, where is it? I saw in here that it was made of horse hair. And yes, in 1962, the Jamaican Judiciary of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal wore a scarlet robe and a black robe when hearing criminal and civil matters respectively. This was accompanied by a short beige wig made of horse hair. Mark you, all the horse hair still are wearing now, just not by the Judiciary. But in a beautifully contrasting moment, you see the melanin-laden image of the current Chief Justice without the wig. And the contrast is just beautiful. Mind you, for whatever reasons I've explained before, I loved the wig. I love the wig because the wig, it did set the members of the judiciary apart from the general courtroom. And especially in criminal matters where you have allegations in criminal cases of some really difficult nature going before the court. And sometimes when you walk into the courtroom, people may feel that I can do or I can say anything. And for me, the wig imposed a certain level of authority in the court. And it also gave the judges a bit of anonymity so that if you see them on the road, you really wouldn't know. It'd be difficult to identify them. All of that is now gone. But for some people, it is gone for the better. But for me, the picture coming up yesterday, based on the publication in the Gleaner on Wednesday, the absolute contrast in the images of former Chief Justice, or first female Chief Justice, the Honourable Mrs. Justice Zalia McCalla, and then right next to her, the one of the Honourable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes without the wig. It is just a demonstration of how things and times change. And with it, it is not only the changing face of the judiciary, which is demonstrated by the change from wig to being wigless, but it is how the judiciary has stepped into the 21st century with judicial accountability to the point where the judges were literally walking yesterday down King Street for this inaugural Judiciary Day. The level of accountability through data that we now have, when you make the appearances before judges, is how they are managing the cases, case management at the criminal and the civil, in the civil courts. You can see the moves for the better. And this is a branch of government that we've celebrated over the years, but now I think it is becoming absolutely clear that they are proud of the role that they play, and they are providing the information to the public so the public can make its own assessment of how they do, what they do. Yeah, being critical if necessary, and the criticisms go to assisting with the dispensation of justice. So I salute this day. On the front page of the Gleaner this morning, birth deliveries falling at Victoria Jubilee. I mentioned this in a conversation with Derek last week and helped me understand it just a little bit more. This article is giving us the stark reality. We are being told that birth deliveries at the country's largest maternity facility, Victoria Jubilee, have tumbled from more than 500 last year to just over 300. A startling shift that confirms a national decline in birth rate. And you see, this is one of the casualties of independence for women. When we started desiring, which is not necessarily a bad thing, going out into the world and becoming professional women in our own right and leaving the house. And when men stop playing their roles as the head of the house, doing what they are supposed to do, then women are now postponing, certainly finding a partner, becoming married, and having children at an early age. Invariably, a woman is looking to have a child now, late 20s if you're lucky, and early 30s. And I've come to realize if I had to do it again, we'll have a Rihanna moment, as I think she's on her third pregnancy. But it's really good to get the children out in a nice, healthy family environment. But the early 20s, with the level of energy and so forth that is required to bringing up children, plus all of the attendant matters, so long as you have the sort of wholesome environment to bring them up, it's good to have them during that time. But the postponement of the age of having children is causing a major problem for the society, and we're going to very soon, if not addressed, we're going to get to the point where we start feeling it. Yeah? So I do hope to get deeper into this with some people at the Victoria Jubilee and the other institutions that deliver babies, and see if we can understand better some of the factors that are at play. And incidentally, even this morning on the news, we heard that there are more claims now being made for children with autism. So there's something that is going on top of the children that we are not having, the numbers we are not having as we used to. More of our children are having a lot of disorders. And I think some proper study must be undertaken to understand the causes of these two issues, especially with an aging population. No, and we need people who will get to a certain age and to be able to contribute to society to really continue the population. Right? Last week as well, before I left this program, we reached out to the chairman of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, which has responsibility for discharging the functions of the political ombudsman. And Mr. Earl Jarrett indicated then that a release was to come out sometime on Friday, and he therefore couldn't speak at the time. The release came out perhaps on Saturday or somewhere there. And through the release, we've learned a few things. In fact, I listened this morning to part of a discussion that Dion had with the individual who has been selected as the liaison between the public and the ECJ members, who together constitute the Office of the Political Ombudsman based on law. So the release that came from the chairman of the Electoral Commission, it says that they are responsible for discharging the functions of the political ombudsman pursuant to the law, which has established a framework to effectively manage its legal responsibility as the political ombudsman. And this responsibility includes holding the political parties accountable to the political code of conduct to which they have subscribed. It says the ECJ has sought to streamline and improve the operations of the Office of Political Ombudsman through the implementation of a dedicated unit within the office of the ECJ. The unit is tasked with responsibility for coordinating the activities of the Office of the Political Ombudsman, including implementing the mechanisms for accepting, processing, responding to complaints from the public. The unit is headed by a senior officer, the ECJ's registrar of political parties. That person will be the chief liaison between the public and the ECJ members, who together constitute the political ombudsman. And that's the lady I heard Dion interviewing yesterday. She is the registrar of political parties. The release goes on to tell us how complaints can be submitted, and it backgrounds to the activities of the political ombudsman since 2024, including among the activities, it tells us that it wrote to the general secretaries of political parties regarding the removal of flags and paraphernalia following the local government elections. And this is part of what computes the problem. the general secretaries of the political parties, they are now members of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. So when the ECJ wrote post the local government elections to the general secretaries of the political parties, it is almost as if the ECJ was writing to part of itself. So the questions still remain, and I believe that they are easily resolved. But communication is not only important, but it is quite desirable from the ECJ as the political ombudsman with greater clarity and specificity about whether it is the entire composition of the ECJ that will handle issues concerning complaints about breach of the political code of conduct by either political parties. There's a very clear principle of law that one cannot be a judge in his own cause. So what that says to me is that any decision concerning any complaints made to the office of the political ombudsman by any of the two political parties, then the nominated members of the commission, the general secretary and whichever other person there is, they cannot sit on the body that is the final adjudicator of those complaints. So it takes nothing for the ECJ to literally put that down on paper, gird it in legal principles, and send it out to us so that not only are they clear, but the members of the public are clear that none of these political parties can have any room at the table concerning alleged breach of the political code of conduct. But that is yet to come. And I don't understand why it hasn't yet come. When Dion interviewed the registrar of political parties, she said, as you can understand, I'm not at the table, because her role is really to do the investigative stuff and to hand it over to the body, and then the body, which has to set its own rules, will decide. But the body cannot decide and be silent. It has to communicate to us the how and indeed the why. Please let us have that.
Join